not sure that Tony, if it was left up to the owner, I'm not sure if Tony wouldn't be the starter now. Just based on the comments that I've heard here in the last couple of weeks. And I don't understand the comments. I don't understand why you would talk. If Tony ends up getting in the game at some point and playing, great. But to dismiss what a young rookie quarterback has done, what would be a great story? What would be a great story is if a rookie quarterback takes his team to a Super Bowl championship. That'd be a great story. The bottom line is winning games. I'm really dumbfounded by the comments, and not only the first time, but why they continue.
That was former Cowboys Hall of Famer Troy Aikman questioning Jerry Jones for continually talking about the quarterback situation in Dallas. Jerry clarified his comments from earlier in the week, saying he unequivocally supports Dak Prescott. Donovan McNabb is with us on a Friday. Who is better than us? Donovan, is the rumor true that we have you every Friday?
Well, yeah, I will be here every Friday, so I look forward to joining the crew. I love what I've seen so far. Just try to add a little bit more firepower and sexiness to the whole deal here before the weekend.
Well, that for sure.
Donovan's bringing sexy back. Stephen A., on a serious note, though, I want to start with you. How bad of a look is this for Jerry?
Well, I think it's a very bad look, and it's something that I've stated continuously. The fact of the matter is Jerry Jones has no business talking about Tony Romo in this fashion. I mean, if you parse Jerry Jones' words, he's essentially said, yes, Dak is the future. We believe in him. We support him. However, for the purposes of this season, if I could get away with it, I would rather Tony Romo be in there than Dak Prescott. And that's basically what he's saying. Well, here's the reality. There's only two ways that Tony Romo can get in the game based on what we're seeing from Dak Prescott. If Dak Prescott suddenly forgot how to play football and was god-awful, or he got hurt. So essentially, if you're Jerry Jones and you keep clamoring for Tony Romo, which is clearly what he's doing, what you're saying is you're wishing for one of those two things. And I'm not going to assume that the man is wishing for Dak Prescott to be hurt. I certainly wouldn't be that irresponsible. Nor am I assuming that he wants the Cowboys to lose, because I understand that too. But I'm just saying to you that as big of a priority as it is for this team to win, it seems to be equally important to him that Tony Romo is the guy captaining the ship and leading the Dallas Cowboys to the promised land in what probably will be his last year in Dallas. That seems to be near the top or at the top of Jerry Jones' wish list, and he appears to have absolutely positively no regard for the rookie quarterback that is Dak Prescott.
This is a bad look for Jerry Jones. Look, our business, criticism of any kind, like the Fourth Estate, the idea of an independent critical press, is based on the idea that a cat can look at a king. No matter how low, I can comment about anybody. Having never played football, I have a right to watch and tell you what I think. And if you don't like it tough, you can judge it on the merits, on the content of what I say. So that's the kind of premise under which we operate. But let me tell you what's much, much worse than just a cat looking at a king. In this case, someone in the press criticizing Jerry Jones. A much bigger problem for him is an unimpeachable critic looking at the king, looking at the guy with all the power. That is his worst nightmare. Who in modern Dallas Cowboys history has more credibility than Troy Aikman? Maybe Emmitt Smith, but he won the quarterback. I think the answer is no one. This may be the most credible, mouthpiece in modern Cowboys history, taking aim at the owner and saying something that is clearly true. Right. That's got to be Jerry Jones's worst nightmare. It's worse than just another critic. The fact that Troy Aikman is saying this, and it's just clearly the case, is really bad for Jerry Jones. Not as bad as the fact that he said what he said in the first place, and his intentions are clear that he wishes it was Tony Romo. But this highlights it, I think, in a way that nothing else could have.
Let me piggyback on that too, Max. One thing for the fans out there to understand, the guy who usually calls the games for when Fox, Dallas is on Fox, is Troy Aikman. Troy Aikman is one of the best quarterbacks to ever play in that history over there at the organization of the Dallas Cowboys. And he understands, just like what we see, Dak Prescott is your future. Why try to find a way to bring Tony Romo into the fold, because what it does is it messes up the chemistry that they've already implanted for the last 10, 12 weeks. Also, now you have to work in a way of kicking the rust off for Tony Romo. And will he stay healthy? Dak Prescott is a guy who's proven each week that not only can he carry the load, but he's shown leadership qualities. He's shown he can make the big play when needed. And when you are down in the 2 minutes to go in the game, you feel confident he's going to lead you back for a win. What I see, and I've said this for the last couple weeks, the problem I have with the Dallas Cowboys is Jerry Jones is a guy who's always talking when the game is over in the locker room. Where is Jason Garrett? Jason Garrett could have ended this 8-9 weeks ago by saying, Dak Prescott is our quarterback, and we're going to go as far as Dak can take us. Not worried about the backup quarterback, not trying to explain to us how good Tony is looking in practice. But the problem with it all is, if you have your former quarterback in Troy Aikman continue to express why he's trying to figure out why Jerry Jones has his infatuation with Tony Romo to be in there to lead the ship to possibly a championship, this is a great story. But I think Jerry's looking at it financially, saying if Dak Prescott leads us to the Super Bowl, in the next 2 years, not only will I have to pay Ezekiel Elliott if he stays healthy, I'm going to have to pay Dak Prescott, who was a fourth-round draft pick, first-round money. So I'm looking at it in the sense that this is a great story from a fan standpoint about the Dallas Cowboys. But from Jerry Jones' standpoint, he's looking at it financially, how he's going to take a hit.
Well, I'm looking at it, and I'm taking it a step further than that, Donovan. Regardless of the business aspect of it all, we all know that Jerry Jones purchased this franchise for about $140 million, and now it's worth over $2 billion. We get that reality with Jerry Jones. So even though you got a hard salary cap, somehow, somewhere, if you got an elite quarterback, especially if he's young, you're going to figure out a way to make sure he gets paid, even if it's at the expense of other people, obviously. What resonates with me about Jerry Jones isn't that, Donovan. What it is the fact that you have not had a Super Bowl since 1995. You have been a walking piece of mediocrity as a franchise for the vast majority of the last 21 years. And even after forcing your fan base to suffer the way that they have suffered, looking as trash as you have looked on too many occasions throughout the last 21 years, now here you come. It's the one thing where you go 12-4, but at the same time, Green Bay is still there, and Seattle's still there, and they're standing in your way, like it was 2 years ago. It's another thing entirely when everyone is looking at you and legitimately saying and designating that the Dallas Cowboys are the favorites to come out of the NFC. You know this, and in the throes of all of this, you talk about Tony Romo with the back surgeries and the collarbones and all of this other stuff, and he can't even play. And you got a young stud who's balling for you, who won 11 straight, and you are clamoring for him to be replaced, even if it appears at the expense of winning. But that is what I find egregious about all of this.
Let me add to that also, Steve. And the thing that bothers me with this whole deal is he couldn't wait for Dak Prescott to mess up. Because it's so much of a big story of trying to get Tony Romo into the fold. He's not even looking at around the kid. The kid's a rookie. He's going to play like a rookie. But when you have guys like Dez Bryant dropping balls and fumbling the ball, when you have the offensive line getting beat at the point of attack, which hasn't happened all season, it's not so much on your rookie quarterback, because at some point he was going to look like a rookie quarterback. But what about the guys around him? What did the defense do? The defense, Dak Prescott didn't give up that 60-plus yard touchdown to Odell Beckham. With a lack of running game for the Giants, why was Eli Manning spreading the ball around? Now, a couple of interceptions could have been caught, but it wasn't all Dak Prescott. But to me, it seems like he was waiting on that moment when Dak Prescott didn't play as well as he has over the last 10 or 12 weeks, so that he can kind of bring it up.
I want to bring one more thing up about Jerry Jones. Jerry Jones, because you went back to Stephen A. in recent days to Jimmy Johnson and Barry Switzer. Jerry Jones inherited a team. And Jimmy Johnson really built up the team and had it ready to go, and then gets rid of him for Barry Switzer. At that point, they won another Super Bowl, but likely underachieved based on what they had. And one of the moves that Jerry Jones pulled at the time was he spearheaded the campaign for the salary cap and all that stuff. And once he got it through, on the same day they signed Deion Sanders. And no one could figure out how they did it. And that's the whole bonus structure. How can you afford Deion Sanders? No, we're prorating that bonus over this number of years. And so it doesn't, like he installed the salary cap and then figured out a way around it. And that may have been the last clever thing he did in terms of manipulating the business to his advantage. He's been very good at extracting a profit. He's been very good at building the equity of the franchise and of the league, by the way. He's been a powerful force for business expansion in the league from a very good point of view if you're the NFL and the idea is to make money. But in terms of the product on the field, since then, since he took too much control, they haven't been good. And it wasn't until Stephen Jones came and kind of wrested control and started drafting the offensive linemen that they've gotten good again. And this is why it's a particularly bad look. Because right at the moment, when it looks like they might run the table, Stephen A., as you said, the accident waiting something will go wrong, will go wrong. Yep. He steps in and tries to mess it up, it seems. And the fact that it's Troy Aikman calling him on it, it's just, I can't imagine a worse look for Jerry Jones right now.
Yeah, cause for concern there. And speaking of the business aspect, the organization is worth $4.2 billion, just to be exact. So we all know Jerry cannot stop talking. But Stephen A., what kind of damage is this doing to the Cowboys as a team?
Well, I think the damage is potentially devastating because you're ultimately going to force people to take sides. And Donovan, not to bring up a bad experience, but you can relate to where I'm going. You know exactly where I'm going with
thanks,
this.
Stephen A. Thanks, Stephen A.
You're welcome. You're very welcome. Welcome to the show. Here's the deal. You know, you got a quarterback in your locker room. Now, in your case, it was T.O., it was you, that kind of thing. In this instance, the team can rally together, and Tony Romo is not causing this distraction. It's Jerry Jones. But nevertheless, you're going to have players who feel compelled to go up to that rookie and say to him, we got you. Keep doing your thing. You know we believe in you, blah, 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 blah. While you clearly have others that may be fantasizing about the possibility of Tony Romo being that quarterback. Like, for example, far be it for me to bring this up, Dez looked bad last week. And not only that, he ain't the greatest route runner in the world to begin with. I don't know this, but who's to say that Dez Bryant isn't one of the individuals clamoring for Tony Romo, since that's the quarterback he's enjoyed the most success with? You got to think about stuff like that when you hear the owner, because you got to wonder, is Jerry Jones doing this on his own, or is Jerry Jones also doing it because he's had private conversations with some of those players who are clamoring for Tony Romo's concern? These are the things that we have to ask ourselves.
Let me add to that, since you brought the whole quarterback receiver combo into the mix. Who's the favorite player on the football team when it comes to offensive players coming off on a 3-and-out or possibly interception? It's the backup quarterback. Who has Dez had the most success with so far, throughout his career, when it came to passing the ball? It's the backup quarterback, Tony Romo. So I look at it in a sense, I'm not pointing the finger at Dez. Like, I don't know exactly, but I know Dez isn't happy of the production that he's had over the last couple of weeks when it comes to catches and big yards and big plays that we've seen. Now, who will not complain? Cole Beasley, also Jason Hard-Hit and Witten, as the catches continue to pile up. Now, the thing that I'm looking at when it comes to splitting a locker room, so to speak, because of this whole situation, if the media continues to bring up the fact that if Dak Prescott struggles over the next couple of weeks, then it could be a perfect opportunity for them to slide Tony Romo into the mix. What happens, people in the locker room begin to see that and hear that on TV. They're answering questions about it. And there are guys who were there, a part of the team when they lost to Green Bay over the controversial catch, where they felt like they could have went to the Super Bowl that particular year. And now it starts to dwindle in their mind that this could be a great redemption year for a guy like Tony Romo to come in and lead them to the Super Bowl. Now, can Dak do it? Well, we'll see. But the question is, you talked about it before. They have been a walk-in mediocrity over the last couple of years, not because of the team that they had, but they just couldn't win the big game when they needed it. So I'm looking more in the sense of who's going to talk now from this point on, because if Troy Aikman's calling you out, I'm pretty sure Emmett's on his way of calling him out as well. And will Michael Irving do the same thing, which I don't think he will, because he has a receiver mentality who Jerry Jones definitely loves.
I want to talk about, listen, the question is, how does this damage the Cowboys? Does it damage them? I think the answer is actually no, Donovan and Stephen A., because of Dak Prescott. Dak Prescott from the first preseason game. And a lot of times this is BS. You see a guy and you go, I like the cut of his jib. I like the way he carries himself. He looks like a leader to me. He has the intangibles. But damn if that wasn't true about Dak Prescott, right? From the first preseason game, you go, I hate to say it, but the Cowboys maybe they got something here. How did all these teams miss this guy? He had it as soon as you saw him the first time. And that's played out to such an extent that people are kind of dubious or skeptical about his QBR even, because he is so much of a kind of intangibles guy, it seems to me, the way Tom Brady was early in his career, Russell Wilson, even Roethlisberger early on, that they're the kind of guys where you're like, don't look at the numbers too much. The numbers won't tell you the whole story. And so when I brought up, until a couple weeks ago, Dak Prescott's leading the league in QBR, it's a little surprising. He seems like the kind of guy who might not have the best QBR, but is winning based on the intangibles. Not because his play is bad, but because that's how strong his leadership qualities appear to be, and that comes across on television, let alone, I imagine, the locker room. So the question as to the damage this causes, I think speaks to the leadership on the team. And I know he's a rookie, and I hope it doesn't happen, but one day a rookie will win the Super Bowl. And boy, it looks like Dak Prescott is a good candidate to be the first.
Well,
his leadership of qualities, Stephen A., tell me that they will be able to handle this better than a team without a guy like that under center.
Here's why you're wrong. Because you're thinking about Dak, not the 52 other players in the locker room.
The
52 other players in the locker room who will go, and they will be divided in terms of who will take sides, who would prefer Dak, who will prefer Romo. That's the problem. It's not Dak. Dak may be very poised, and Jerry Jones is right to talk about how he's not worried about Dak Prescott's fragility. But that's where Jerry Jones is misguided, because he's thinking about how it's going to affect that player directly as opposed to how it's going to affect the other dudes in the locker room who communicate with that guy. Go ahead, Donovan.
Yeah, the whole thing about it that, Max, you don't understand, we can talk from a fan standpoint of people on the outside looking in, but what about the people in that locker room? People in that locker room got wives and kids at home. All they're thinking about is winning the Super Bowl and making money. And the thing about over the last couple of years is their relationship with Tony has continued to grow. Now, Dak has just gotten there.
How many Super Bowls they won with Tony, Donovan?
Well, the whole thing, listen, people love Tony. Tony would take him out to dinner. Tony would buy him presents.
But you just said the motivation is to win and to blow up in the playoffs. Dak, I mean, listen, how many times have they done that with Tony? Never took him anywhere.
If your boss continues to put in your mind you have the best chance of winning with one particular guy, every time the one that's in there continues to mess up, you're going to look over at him and say, you know what? It's going to happen at some point.
Continues to mess up 2 games to the Giants. That's it.
It doesn't
2 games
matter.
to the Giants. And they're close.
But see, this is the thing about it, Max, is you understand how powerful the media is. And it becomes such a big story when we talk about it. It's the locker room that's going to talk about it as well.
Yeah, you don't hear a lot of divided locker rooms winning a Super Bowl, and that potentially could be their demise.
Donovan is absolutely right. Absolutely right.